Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over the Paladin sword that made it into my top 10 worst unique items list. If you haven't seen that, you should probably take a look at it. It's a pretty good video. But today we're going to be deep diving into Kinemil's all. We're going to be talking about it. We're going to be figuring out maybe what they could do to fix it, and well, we're going to upgrade it too, because we want to see what happens if you upgrade it. Kinemil's all is a giant sword, which means it is a two-handed weapon. And specifically as a two-handed weapon, it's not actually too bad. And that might surprise you, because why did it make it onto the top 10 worst unique item lists? Well, I mean, if you're a barbarian and you could wield it in one hand and you could pair it up with something else, it's actually halfway decent, just from the simple fact that it can be utilized by a barbarian. But the thing is that this sword was not meant to be used by a barbarian. This sword is meant to be used by a paladin, as you can see by the +6 holy fire. So let's go over the sword together, and then we'll postulate. So shall we? Postulate. That's a fancy word. Postulation. We will postulate our minds. So Kinemil's all is 18 to 56 damage, which is not bad for a one-handed weapon around level 23, but is actually pretty poor for a two-handed weapon around level 23. It is 34 dexterity requirement and 56 strength, which is relatively low, so not bad at all on the strength and dex requirements. But level 23 is where things get kind of hairy. Holy Fire is something that you can use very effectively to get through normal difficulty. And by the time you hit level 23, you are approaching the end of normal difficulty. So you are more into hell difficulty. Oh, sorry, or not hell difficulty, but hell itself. You know, you're in River of Flame, you're in Chaos. There's lots of very resistant fire monsters there. Fire doesn't really work very well in River of Flame, as the name suggests, because there are a lot of monsters there that are just almost outright immune to fire, although in normal difficulty you won't find many immunes, but they are still heavily resistant. We also have 100% enhanced damage on this, which does vary by 20%, so from 80 to 100%, which means you can find this at a much lower damage output. I believe it goes as low as 28 on the bottom. I'm trying to think here. 16 on the bottom end and 50 on the top end, something around there. I'm calculating in my head. We also have 150 to attack rating on here, which is a pretty massive bump in attack rating. And this is the reason why I said this is actually a halfway decent sword for a barbarian. It's because of that monster amount of attack rating. Like if you were actually going to utilize this on like a little, maybe like whirlwind barbarian or a frenzy barb or something like that, you just wanted a massive bump in attack rating. I still feel like there's better choices for a low-level barbarian, but 150 attack rating is certainly nice. 6 to 40 fire damage isn't really that massive, but especially at level 23 when you're getting toward the end of normal difficulty. In the beginning of normal difficulty, like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, it definitely would help you out. But as you progress forward, the monsters get more and more in HP. They become harder to kill. They have more resistances to fire, especially in Act 4, which is where you're probably going to put this sword on. It's very poorly placed, in my opinion. Then we have +6 to Holy Fire, which is a pretty massive bonus. So it literally will just, if you put it on, will give you the skill Holy Fire, whether you have it or not. And if you don't have it, it just gives it to you, and your plus to skills can come into effect, and you can actually utilize this. And if you're in normal difficulty, you could utilize Holy Fire as a low-level monster killing engine. I've actually, when I posted my top 10 worst unique items, it was the only use, honestly, the only use that people could come up with that I actually agreed with was a halfway decent use, which was basically just putting it on and just running around in normal difficulty like Stony Field and just like farming chip gems and stuff, because you could theoretically do that. You could just run around and farm gems with your Kinemil's all. And that's not actually using it to attack anything, and nor is this actually going to help you in on-level content. This is really just something that you can do to farm chippies, and as you can see, we already got a chippy. So it's an interesting use for Kinemil's all, I suppose, if you wanted to just run around farming chip gems. But any paladin who's a Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, or Holy Shock paladin, a Dream paladin, or any of those other things can do that anyway without Kinemil's all, which kind of really puts a damper on the whole thing. The only real use for this is a Paladin who's not a Holy Freeze, Holy Fire, Holy Shock Paladin who wants to run around farming chippies. And there you go. We've got 3 chippies so far. Not bad. 3 little chippy gems. And we just ran around normal difficulty farming chippies. So it's not difficult at all to get some chippies out of that. An interesting use, but not exactly one that actually means anything past farming chippies. We also have plus 20 mana on here, which at level 23, 20 mana is actually a pretty decent amount of mana. It's not bad, especially when, as a low-level Paladin, I think you have like 15 mana to start out with, so 20 is pretty more than double what you had to start. And if you're using skills like Zeal, Zeal has relatively low mana cost anyway, so as you can see, it's mana cost 2. Not very bad at all. We also have the ethereal version, which is 26 to 84 damage. It does have a little bit lower requirements, so we got 24 dex and 46 strength. This sword can be upgraded, and we're going to upgrade it, and we're going to see how it upgrades. But for the most part, remember that the ethereal version really can't be used unless you're going to put a Zod in it. You could theoretically put this on a Act 5 two-handed barbarian if you found one early on, which could be moderately useful for a little while. Of course, you'd have to get to Act 5 to grab your two-handed barbarian, and it would not, however, go on the Frenzy Barb, because the Frenzy Barb does not use two-handed weapons at all, despite the fact that barbarians can wield two-handed weapons as one-handed weapons. That's kind of silly. So to upgrade this, you're going to need some relatively easy-to-come-by runes, Ral, Soul, and a Perfect Emerald. So the first upgrade is probably going to be a halfway decent one, specifically for like people who might actually want to utilize this as not a Holy Fire weapon, so like a Barbarian perhaps. So let's go ahead and hit the runes in here. And it's going to go from 18 to 56, 34 dex, 56 strength, level 23, to 38 to 116, 71 dex, 104 strength, level 30. So the upgrade actually wasn't that bad. I mean, here we have a sword that is basically level 30, 38 to 116 damage, which is actually pretty good for a two-handed sword around that level. It has a little decent amount of fire damage. It has pretty okay attack rating. 150 attack rating is not bad. You're going to get a lot better attack rating from other sources like Kasura's two-piece boot belt combo, or Saigon's helmet glove combo, or, you know, like angelic ring amulet combo. If you really need attack rating, there are better ways to get it than directly from your sword. But having 150 extra attack rating on the sword certainly isn't bad. The main issue here is the stat requirements. 71 dex and 104 strength is pretty high stat requirements for level 30. You're going to have a hard time hitting both of those numbers at level 30, and it's going to sacrifice a huge amount of your HP to get there. You're going to be very weak with hit points trying to put this sword on. Let's take a look at the ethereal version. And we got 26 to 84. And that goes to 56 to 174. Not bad, with 61 dex and 94 strength requirement. A little bit better on the strength and dex, obviously, because ethereal items have 10 less on both. So we got 20 less on the requirements. This could be an interesting choice for a, like I said, an Act 5 two-handed barbarian. It really is sad that they can't actually, you know, use this on the Frenzy Barb, because I feel like it would work better on the Frenzy Barb. It does have a one-handed damage of 28 to 32, by the way. And because we actually want to take a look at the one-handed potential of this, let me actually throw this in the stash. And let's go over to a Barbardidin. And that way we can get an idea of what kind of one-handed damage it does as well. So one-handed damage for the non-upgraded version was 28 to 32, which is pretty poor. And if we bring this over to a Barbarian, which doesn't get the effects of the Holy Fire or anything like that, the one-handed damage on the upgraded version is 20 to 74 on the non-ethereal, and 30 to 110 on the ethereal. So not exactly a super amazing upgrade there to level 30. I do feel like the 100% enhanced is really what kind of like made it okay. If you did find this and it was like 80% enhanced, it might not be as great. I mean, strictly speaking, from a barbarian standpoint, if you found this on your way leveling up and you wanted to use this as one of your swords, I mean, why not? It doesn't have anything special on it, though. There's no crushing blow. There's no open wounds. There's no, pretty much anything. There's no increased attack speed on it, although it does classify as a fast attack speed sword, so it's not like too terrible. Again, the ethereal version can't be used by anybody except for basically the Act 5 two-handed barbarian. Let's upgrade this to the elite version, and let's see how the elite version comes about. So we go from 20 to 74 one-handed, 38 to 116 two-handed, 71 dexterity, 104 strength, level 30, to 30 to 150 one-handed, 110 to 236 two-handed, 87 dex, 185 strength. That's a really high strength requirement there. And then the ethereal version is also upgradable, and this is the one that actually matters because you could actually put a Zod rune in this if you wanted to. That's going to go from 30 to 110, 56 to 174, 61 dex, 94 strength, level 30, to 44 to 244 one-handed damage, 164 to 354 two-handed damage, 77 dex, 175 strength, and level 65. Now, do keep in mind that level 65 is meaningless because if you are going to use this, you're going to have to Zod it. And Zodding it is going to bring the level requirement up quite a bit. I can't tell you exactly what that is without putting a Zod rune in it. And for science, we're going to do it. It's really weird to me that the Zod rune has a variable level. Normally when it comes to runes, if you put a rune in the item, the level of the item goes up to the level of the rune. So like if you have a level 40 rune and you put it in the item, it will immediately go to that particular level. Well, the level of a Zod rune is level 69. And you would think that when you put a Zod rune into an item, you would be able to, accurately guess, essentially, what kind of level you're going to end up with. But the answer to the question is no, you actually can't. And the reason why you can't is because it's random. And I'm sure it's not actually random if somebody digs into the mechanics of the game and figures out exactly what causes the rune to go up in level like that, or the item to go up in level. I'm sure you would know. But as you can see here, we have a level 65 item, and if we put the Zod rune in there, it goes up to level 81. So it's not always predictable with the Zod rune, and this gives you a little bit of an idea. All in all, Kinemil's All is one of those weird swords that I think would be better off in the hands of a barbarian than the paladin that it's pointed at. And I feel like we need to talk about that for a second. So, it's a two-handed sword, and this is one of the biggest downfalls of Kinemil's All for its intended purpose. Paladins are not two-handed weapon users. There are two-handed weapons that are pointed at paladins, but the main issue with paladins is that they are balanced entirely around the shield. Their character is set up so that they have incredibly good faster blocking, they have incredibly good block frames, they have insanely good abilities with blocking, like Holy Shield, and the ability to improve all the defense on their character, and their block chance, and their blocking frames. And so much of the paladin character revolves around the shield that it is a huge handicap to put on a two-handed weapon. And that two-handed weapon has to be really good to allow you to do this kind of thing, to make this kind of sacrifice toward this end. The other issue here is that they chose Holy Fire. Holy Fire is a ability that applies elemental damage on attack. Yes, it does have a pulsing effect, and in lower levels, and if you're in like Act 3, Act 2, Act 1, normal difficulty, the Holy Fire aura can pulse and kill just about everything around you. But that pulse is meaningless when you're actually on level content, because it's not the pulse that kills the monster, it's the on-hit damage that kills the monster. So you have to actually get in there and swing your sword to be able to apply the damage. The sword is is kind of slow. It's only a fast attack speed sword in a base which is not really that fast. The giant sword base is a I'm trying to think here. I think it's a 10. What is the speed on it? Fast attack speed does not give us what we are looking for. So it is a 0. The giant sword is a 0 speed weapon, which means it is not as fast as a -10, -20, or -30. For comparison's sake, the phase blade is -30. The dimensional blade is -20, and something like the... I'm trying to give a good example here. The long sword or the cryptic sword, as well as the saber, are -10. So this is 30 speed slower than a phase blade with no increased attack speed. And why is this so detrimental to the Kinemil's All as a Holy Fire Paladin? The answer is because as a Holy Fire Paladin, you want to swing your sword fast, because you're applying, say, 500 fire damage on every single attack, no matter how fast or how slow you attack. If you attack once every minute, you're applying 500 fire damage. If you attack 3 times every minute, you're applying 1,500 fire damage. And the faster that you can apply that damage, the better. So putting +6 Holy Fire on a sword, no matter how much it beefs up your damage, is not going to compensate for the fact that Kinemil's All is actually a fairly slow weapon. One of the things that they could do to make this, honestly, a lot better, and I know I've already gone 16 minutes on a sword that's probably a terrible weapon, but I do feel like if the developers ever watch these and they get an idea of what they can do to fix these, it would be interesting to see them actually apply some fixes to some of these terrible weapons. So Kinemil's All, what could they do to fix it? First off, it needs increased attack speed. If you're going to target this directly at a Holy Fire Paladin, it needs to have some kind of increased attack speed. Even 20% increased attack speed would be a good start. Also, +6 Holy Fire, while it's certainly very interesting, doesn't really give anything to, like, a higher level character. I mean, maybe if they put something else on here like Zeal or Charge, maybe another skill on here to incentivize the use instead of just Holy Fire. Including, they could also probably put some plus Paladin skills, generic Paladin skills. I would be more than happy if they took away the 6 Holy Fire, put like +2 Pally on here, and then 4 Holy Fire instead, which would still equal out to +6 Holy Fire, and then they could have a sword that would be more universally interesting to a Paladin, because it would beef up his auras, it would beef up his Zeal attack, it would beef up his charge, whatever he's using. I'm not really sure what else they could do here. Maybe some type of ability on here that would incentivize use, like maybe a little bit of open wounds, or a little bit of crushing blow, or a little bit of, something to make it more of an offensive sword. I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? You're a paladin, you have a weapon, you have a shield, right? So you got your big monster shield, you got your big monster weapon. You're giving up a two-handed weapon, which is supposed to be higher damage. So the general consensus has always been, if I'm using a two-handed weapon, I'm giving up my defense for offensive ability, right? So if a paladin is giving up his shield, then it needs to be a greater choice than something that he could get with a sword and a board, right? So if I'm a paladin, what are some other choices that I could use? Well, one thing I could use right off the bat is a Hellplague sword. A Hellplague sword is a +2 fire skill sword that has 25 to 75 fire damage. So right here, we already have a sword that is better than Kinemil's All at the same level that you can use Kinemil's All. In fact, one level below, for less stat requirements, it also gives you lifesteal and mana steal, more fire damage, and gives you +2 to Holy Fire, which you can then combine with something else like a Steel Clash that also has +1 to skills. So you're looking at +3 right there. If you wanted to take it further, you could also look specifically for a Paladin Scepter that has +1 Pally with +3 Holy Fire, so you're looking at 4 to Holy Fire, and a Steel Clash. So now you're at +5 Holy Fire without having to sacrifice your shield. So +6, one extra level of Holy Fire does not make much sense when you are literally talking about giving up a huge defensive advantage. Honestly, they would have to increase this Holy Fire to probably +8 or +10 even to make up for the fact of losing a shield. And if they brought it up high enough to the point where losing the shield now becomes, oh, well, I'm sacrificing defense for offense, then it could be interesting. Let's move on to Silo's Pen, because I've talked long enough on this awful item. And let's take a look and see where we could potentially find this. Not that you really need much help finding Kinemil's all, because it drops all over the place. And let's go ahead and put this into the drop calc. So unique item, Kinemil's all. There it is right there. We're going to assume about 100% magic find, because this is a relatively low level item. And then we're going to go take a look at bosses. Bosses, that's right, bosses. Ignoring the quest flags, it looks like normal Diablo is your best bet at 1 and 215. That is a good on-level monster to fight. So around level 23, when you would actually want to put this on, that is actually the monster that you would be fighting around level 23, unless you're still stuck in Act 3. So I'm just going to cut it short there and say normal Diablo looks like the best bet. He's even better than Nightmare and Dariel, and normal Diablo is easier to farm. Let's take a look at super uniques. Super uniques, we got Nightmare Cow King. That's a terrible choice for trying to farm a level 23 weapon on a level 23 character. Although I guess if you're a higher level character just trying to get your hands on it, it wouldn't be bad. It does look like Grand Visor of Chaos, Infector of Souls, Lord des Seas all have a good chance in normal difficulty, which really solidifies the normal Diablo run. Nightmare Countess, not a terrible choice, but that's way after level 23. Eldritch the Rectifier, Pandalskin, Thresh Socket. A lot of good choices here. I mean, those are all really easy choices to farm this guy. Honestly, I don't really think you're going to have much trouble finding a Kinemil's all. In fact, I'm pretty sure that if you just type in free into the online game and hit enter, there's probably like 3 of them on the ground in the free game. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when it's a 22-minute rant on Kinemil's all. Hopefully, eventually, they will think about touching some of the unique items and fixing them. But until then, keep watching.